So, functional adaptation skills training, FAST for short, was tested in the community here in San Diego. Board and cares. We recruited people from SROs and people who lived at home with family and whatnot. It's 24 weekly sessions. As Kim suggested, it's done in groups of 6 to 10 patients in our case. I agree that 10 is too many, but the reason that we have as many as we did in the group is because you can't get people to come to a group every time. And so we oversubscribed our groups in order to make sure that there were enough participants to allow them to practice. With only 6, you get down to, with a couple of people missing, you're down to 4 people. So we try to oversubscribe a little bit. The 24 sessions I'm going to describe to you, but basically they're repetitious in some way. And the reason that they're repetitious is we want to, provide people who often are cognitively impaired with the ability to hear the messages, to practice the skills repeatedly, so that increases the chances that they're going to actually learn the behavior. We also want to be able to let them go home and practice the behavior, come back and problem solve what kinds of problems they might have encountered, what barriers there are that they've encouraged. So this will also help people who are cognitively impaired. Each session's about 90 minutes long, and you might say, well, I don't think the patients can tolerate 90 minutes, but I'm going to show you that I think they can if you make this enjoyable. So here's the major areas of domains that we are covering: planning and organization, communication skills, social skills, medication management, transportation skills, and financial management. We chose these areas, well, actually we didn't choose them, you did. Many of you participated in groups where you told us which skills people would need to be able to live in the community. We asked the patients, these are the skills that it boiled down to that they thought there would need to be able to live in the community. And we asked their families, and again, we got the same answers. So these are the skills that we believe are fundamental to being living in the community. You see there's 4 sessions for each of these skills. Each time there's repetition, that is, that they learn the same material, but there's some building on top of skills each time so that it gets a little more complex each time. We're not going to have time to go through the modules in any details, so I can't show you everything. This is manualized, meaning, we've got a lot of paper that gives you detailed information on how to go through this step by step. So this is just a flavor of how we do it. Now, general tips are included here, and Kim covered a lot of these, but I think in all of these things, we have to think about barriers to not participating, whatever they might be. And oftentimes it's transportation, sometimes it's cognitive, where they feel like they can't, they won't. And we are, in our initial assessment, talk with the patient, we talk a lot about what are the barriers to your participation. How can we get you here? How can we help you get here? And then the barriers to not only participating, but practicing the behavior. So one of those things, and one of the things that we've experimented with is, when do you give the intervention? And the daytime was by far the best. We tried evenings, we tried mornings, and it interferes with regular activities and whatnot. So daytime is really important. Materials need to be presented in large print, which this isn't a particularly good example of, but the idea is that people that are getting long of tooth and have poor eyesight like myself, we need all the help we can get, so large print is important. We need to understand whatever speech and learning impediments the person might have that will impair their ability to communicate. And cultural traditions and whatnot are extremely important. We live in a diverse community. As a matter of fact, our intervention, we have shown that it does work in the Hispanic community here in San Diego. However, We also noted that our sample was not was a paucity of Hispanics, and part of the reason that turns out to be the case is patients with schizophrenia and other kinds of severe mental illness oftentimes live with family members, and our intervention was really designed for people in a more of a community kind of environment. And so right now, Veronica Cardenas, one of my postdocs, is working on modifying this intervention for Hispanic communities and work with their families, engaging a family in this. Memory problems, we already mentioned. Repetition is absolutely critical if you're going to get this information across. So in order to keep participants engaged in the intervention, you definitely need to go through all of the steps that are up here. We've already gone through most of them, but this piece in red here I think is absolutely, for me, the best advice I can give you. I view time when you're lecturing as wasted time in general. The time that's most effective with patients is the time that they're actually engaged in the behavior and practicing the behavior. So, and it's hard, I think, for people who are leading groups to get away from the model that I'm doing right now, which is to lecture to you. You need to be out there and doing this in order to make, to improve your skills in actually teaching these things. For the patient, it's all about actually doing the practice both in the group and at home in homework. So I spend most of my time in all my interventions telling the people who are delivering it, shut up. Let the patient get to practice the behavior. Let them talk to you. Let them tell you what the barrier is. And you can provide the positive feedback for them. Here's the outline of a class. In essence, what we do. First, you've got to provide ground rules for the group. And these kind of ground rules, in the manual, we give you details as to what they are, but they're things like be respectful of other people, don't interrupt when they're speaking, those kinds of things. So it's getting the group started on a positive note. And the participants then introduce themselves, and I'll show you just briefly how we operate in that regard. We give a mini lecture, and I mean a mini lecture. We have a discussion where they're planning and problem solving the situations that they deal with in their everyday life. That's, again, the patient telling you what their plan is for this behavior and problem solving any barriers and problems that they might have with that. And then there's modeling. You show the behavior once, and then everybody in the group gets to practice with other people in the group what the behavior is. That each of the people pair up. Sometimes they become helpers to each other in the community so that they can engage the behavior and help the other patient engage in the behavior. Then we have a break. So one of the things that's really important here is that, we're talking 90 minutes. 90 minutes of trying to get people to pay attention is very difficult, as you know from sitting here for as long as you have, I'm sure. But what we do is we have snacks, and we allow people, there's a lot of smokers in this group, and so they take a smoke. But we use that time in a very profitable way. So when we have snacks, people are taught to serve the snacks to other people, to do it in a respectful way, and the person that's getting the snack is taught to say thank you and respond with eye contact and whatnot. So the time isn't as much a break that the patient perceives as a break, but we use it for work time to increase social skills. So all the time that you can possibly use at any moment, you try to weave in a creative way to the intervention itself. Then we go back to essentially the same thing in a repetitious way. It's the same piece again. Mini lecture, discussion, they model, they role play, and then you summarize. In class, you have a review, and then there's homework. And the homework goes after each time. So